Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We are on ayah number 211. Let us continue bihawlillahi wa quwwatih. قال الله تعالى: سل بني إسرائيل كم آتيناهم من آية بينة ومن يبدل نعمة الله من بعد ما جاءته فإن الله شديد العقاب. The word sal from sa'ala yas'alu is the order format ask. Bani Israel, we have spoken about this before, how many clear ayat we gave them. The question is directed to the Prophet ﷺ, and he is told to ask the Yahud of Al-Madinah. And this is not a question of istifham, of seeking to understand a matter. Rather, this is a question of taqrir, of rebuke. So this ayah is telling the Prophet to ask the Banu Israel, who are the Yahud of Al-Madinah, about all these signs that were given to them, such as the hand of Musa and his staff, and splitting the sea and saving them from Fir'aun and his army, shading them with the cloud when it was sunny, sending to them al-manna wa salwa, and other than that. Yet despite this, many of the Banu Israel embraced kufr. This is where he says, whoever yubaddil, tabdil, to change ni'mah of Allah, this refers to al-Islam. So you're changing from al-Islam to kufr. After the signs have come to him, then Allah is shadidul iqab, severe in torment. Question: is this ayah specific to the Prophet, or is it general? Well, there's nothing wrong with saying that this ayah is general, so that we too can ask the Yahud this question, to argue against them. Also note that the verb baddala, yubaddilu, needs two maf'ulain. Ni'mah is one maf'ul. The other maf'ul, the passive participle, is implied, is kufr. So this is similar to Allah saying, Alam tara ila alladhina baddalu ni'matallahi kufran wa ahallu qawmahum dar al-bawar. Did you not see the ones who changed the ni'mah of Allah into kufr? So from Islam to al-kufr. So reflecting on this ayah, we may take that Allah gave Banu Israel many ayat, which testified to the veracity of Musa alayhi salam, and yet so many of them turned to kufr. So the lesson here is that when we find so many of these kuffar saying to us that if Allah exists, why does he not show himself or produce some kind of miracle? Then we need to remember this type of ayah, that even when people are given clear signs, bayyina, clear, they still will not believe. The only type of people who will believe are those whose fitrah is intact, whose hearts are open, and even then they will not require some sort of miracle. The signs which are present in this world are enough for them. So all this nonsense about evidence of God's existence, which is the main atheist argument, and miracles, these types of arguments are smokes and mirrors. The real issue at hand is the state of a person's heart. We also find from this ayah that when the signs come to you and the message is delivered to you in its plain, clear form, then you have no excuse if you then thereafter choose kufr. And for those who do choose kufr, then they need to know that Allah is severe in torment. And there is nothing wrong with letting the kuffar know about this. Many people are afraid that they may hurt the feelings of the kuffar if they talk about Allah being severe in torment. But this is not correct. Allah Jalla wa Ala in the Quran addresses the kuffar and tells them how severe he is in his torment. Because in matters of truth and falsehood, political correctness must not come first. Sometimes you just need to be blunt. And this is particularly the case with the stubborn type of kuffar. Ayah 212. زُيِّنَ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا وَيَسْخَرُونَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا فَوْقَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَاللَّهُ يَرْزُقُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. زُيِّنَ from the verb zayyana, yuzayyinu, to adorn something. So zuyyana, adorned, the passive sense. For the kuffar, al-hayat ad-dunya, the life of this world. Ad-dunya is the feminine of adna, meaning nearer. So this world we are living in, or this life, is the near life. And the life of the akhirah, that's the one which is further away. وَيَسْخَرُونَ from sakhira yasharu, to mock. So these kuffar mock those who amanu, who have iman. And we have spoken about this word before. وَالَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا, and those who have taqwa. Taqwa is a key word, we have spoken about that before. فَوْقَهُمْ will be above them, meaning above the kuffar on Yawm al-Qiyamah. We have spoken about the word qiyamah before. And Allah yarzuq, meaning provides. Man yasha, whomsoever He wills, without hisab, counting, that is to say, limitlessly. So reflecting on this ayah, we find how infatuated the kuffar are with this world. It's all they know. As Allah tells us, يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. They know the superficial aspects of this world. They cannot see beyond the materialistic facade. And so having known this, the believer is not fully invested in this world. He uses this world to prepare for his real life in the akhirah. We learn that the kuffar have always and will always mock the believers. Not the present tense is used in the verb yaskharuna, which means they are still mocking the believers. So the lesson is that we should not be surprised if the kuffar mock the believers. This has been going on since the dawn of kufr. The first messenger was Nuh alayhi salam, and they mocked him. He said to them, إِن تَسْخَرُوا مِنَّا فَإِنَّا نَسْخَرُ مِنْكُمْ كَمَا تَسْخَرُونَ. If you're going to mock us, we will mock you. So do not be shocked or take offense when they mock the believers. We know who will have the last laugh. So there is no need to get stressed. We find from this ayah that the people of taqwa are going to be higher than the kuffar. This basically means that the believers will be in Jannah. These are the high levels. And the kuffar will be in Jahannam. These are the lower levels. We find that Allah Jalla wa Ala provides people without counting, that is, without limit, so that the resources of Allah are limitless. And from this we learn of the magnanimous nature of Allah Jalla wa Ala, for which of course He has to be praised and thanked. Ayah 213. كان الناس أمة واحدة فبعث الله النبيين مبشرين ومنذرين وأنزل معهم الكتاب بالحق ليحكم بين الناس فيما اختلفوا فيه وما اختلف فيه إلا الذين أوتوه من بعد ما جاءتهم البينات بغيا بينهم فهدى الله الذين آمنوا لما اختلفوا فيه من الحق بإذنه والله يهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. He says that An-Nas, mankind, were one ummah, one nation. This means they were one nation upon Tawheed. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu says that between Adam alayhi salam and Nuh alayhi salam there were 10 generations, all of them upon Tawheed. Then thereafter kufr began. And so this is why Allah Jalla wa Ala sent Nuh alayhi salam as the first messenger. This is why He says, فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ النَّبِيِّينَ. So Allah ba'atha, sent the prophets. And so these prophets are messengers. Mubashirin, as bearers of glad tiding. Bushra means glad tiding. So these messengers are giving glad tidings to the believers that they will be in Jannah. Wa mundhirin, and warners. They are warning the stubborn kuffar that they will be in Jahannam. Wa anzala, sent down ma'ahum, with them, al-kitab, meaning the scripture. And different messengers were given different scriptures, but what is apparent here is that every messenger was given some type of scripture. Bil-haq, with the truth. This could have two meanings. Firstly, the scripture itself conveys the truth. And the second meaning is that the scripture is truthfully from Allah. It is not fabricated. And both of these meanings are correct. Liyahkum, from hakama, to judge بين الناس, amongst the people, فيما, about which اختلفوا فيه, they differed. So the people were differing. What is the truth? What is the falsehood? So they needed a judge. This is where the prophets and messengers come in with their scriptures. وَمَا اخْتَلَفَ فِيهِ, and no one disputed about it, meaning about the scripture, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ, except those, أُوتُوهُ, the passive form of آتَى يُؤْتِي, to give. So this means except those who were given the scripture. مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتِ, after the clear signs or miracles came to them. Okay, so why did they differ even after the signs came to them? بغيا, this is مفعول لأجله. He says بغيا بينهم, out of enmity towards each other, or jealousy, you could say. So this is the oldest vice in the book, people being jealous of each other and transgressing against each other. So the message can come to you, the miracles can come to you, but there still remains the problem of the ego and pride, which is inbuilt in man. So he goes on, فَهَدَى اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, so Allah guided those who believed, لِمَا اخْتُلِفُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الْحَقِّ بِإِذْنِهِ, then Allah guided with His permission, بِإِذْنِهِ, those who believed, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, to the truth of what they were differing, لِمَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. And he says, وَاللَّهُ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ, and Allah guides whomsoever He wills to the صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. The guidance here is a guidance of tawfiq, actually putting somebody on the truth, not just merely showing them the truth, because we can guide people in this way too. Mustaqim means straight. Sirat is normally a wide, straight path. It can be also pronounced in some qira'at as zirat with a zai. This means to swallow something. And the link is this large, wide path swallows people up because they pass through it quickly without any jostling and pushing and shoving. So this ayah speaks about people differing amongst each other. Abdurrahman ibn Zayd ibn Aslam reports from his father radiallahu anh, that he said about this ayah that the people disputed about the day of congregation. The Jews made it Saturday, the Christians made it Sunday, and Allah guided the Ummah of Muhammad ﷺ to Friday. They also disputed about the true Qibla, prayer directions. The Christians faced the East, the Jews faced the Bayt al-Maqdis, and Allah guided this Ummah to the true Qibla, that is Kaaba. They also disputed about the prayer. Some of them bow down, but they do not prostrate. Others prostrate, but they do not bow down. Some of them they pray while talking, some of them pray while walking, and Allah guided this ummah to the truth. They also disputed about the fasting. Some of them fast part of the day, whilst others refrain from certain types of foods, and Allah guided this ummah to the truth. They also disputed about Ibrahim alayhi salam. The Jews said he is a Jew, whilst the Christians considered him a Christian, and Allah made him a Hanif, Muslim, that is to say a Muslim who is inclined to Tawheed. Allah has guided the Ummah of Muhammad ﷺ to the truth. They also disputed about Isa ﷺ. The Jews rejected him and accused his mother of a major sin, whilst the Christians made him into a God and son of God. Allah made him by His word a spirit from him, that is to say a spirit which Allah created. Allah guided the Ummah of Muhammad ﷺ to the truth. And these are the words of the Sahabi. So reflecting on this ayah, we take the vital lesson that Al-Islam is the status quo. There are many people, particularly atheists, who claim that polytheism is the status quo and that monotheism is an offshoot of that. And they could not be more wrong. This ayah is a clear evidence against them. The first 10 generations of mankind were upon Tawheed. It is polytheism and other types of kufr which are the deviation from the status quo. We find the wisdom behind sending messengers as bearers of glad tidings, as warners, as people who will judge between right and wrong and guide people to the truth. We find that Allah sent the messengers, meaning you cannot earn yourself prophethood. Prophets are simply chosen in accordance with the wisdom of Allah Jalla wa'ala. It's as simple as that. We may also take that Allah is high if He's going to send down the scripture. We also take the obligation of taking the scripture as the ultimate arbitrator, such that no one's judgment should contradict the scripture. We also take that Allah is not merely the creator, but rather He cares for His creation. He wants the best for His creation, not just merely creating and then letting them go. So this is why He cares for our guidance, yet at the same time respecting our free will. We find from this ayah that even those who were given the knowledge and the scripture differed about it, whereas it is obligatory to be united upon the scripture. And so the hadith which says that اختلاف أمتي رحمة, the differences in my ummah is a rahmah, is a weak hadith, not only in its isnad, but in its meaning as well. And if one were to ask, well, why would they differ after the scripture came to them? And the answer is given in the ayah, baghyan, transgression against each other, or you could even say hasad, envy against each other. So the major example here is that the Yahud and Nasara, they were given the scripture, and yet they still differ about Muhammad ﷺ. They reject him. How is it that they are rejecting him when they were given the scripture with the description of the Prophet? The answer is envy, jealousy, and transgression. Like we said, the human ego is a major obstacle in accepting the truth. And so from this we may also take that it is obligatory to follow the truth wherever you find it. Even if your initial opinion or madhab was contrary to the truth, you are still required to change your madhab and adopt the truthful opinion where the evidence lies. We learn that those who have Iman are guided to the truth, so it means that the stronger your Iman is, the more to the truth you will be guided. So, for example, the Sahaba were closer to attaining the whole truth than those who came after them, because the level of Iman amongst the Sahaba was the highest of this Ummah. Now, even the Sahaba were not perfect, but the level of truth they attained was higher than those after them. We may pick up that if Allah has guided you to the truth, for example, a kafir embraces Islam, then he should give full credit to Allah, because it is Allah alone who guided him. It is not because that particular person himself has earned his guidance, like you may earn your wages. Because you notice he says bi'idhnihi, with his permission. So all the guidance is with the permission of Allah, so the ultimate credit belongs to him. We may also take that Allah has a willpower, a mashia, with which He guides and misguides whomsoever He wills. And so therefore Allah has actions which are ikhtiyariya. He chooses to do them when He wills it. We say this is sifa fi'liya. We may also take that any deen or any path other than al-Islam is the crooked path, because He calls the path of Islam as siratun mustaqim, which means any other path is not siratun mustaqim, therefore it is the crooked path. Wallahu a'lam.